Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to you legends. What is happening, guys? We are coming in with a short episode of the podcast. So bringing in our feed across the various platforms. So if you're coming into this one live, guys, you know the drill. You know the drill. We are going to be starting this episode off in just 2 minutes. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking about simple fat loss strategies. This is going to be a basics episode. So if you're ready to rip into this one, guys, make sure that you let us know in the comments. We're going to be starting this in 2 minutes. And then hopefully we can solve some challenges that we've got in here. We can lose some fat. So what's going on, guys? I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful start to your week. Off the back of what was Canada Day yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. So we're in here for another episode of The Potty. So welcome, team. I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful start to the morning. We're going to kick this off in just under a minute. And so if you are coming into this one live, please let us know that you're here, my brothers, my sisters, and we are going to be rocking and rolling. So I'm going to bring in our team on Instagram and TikTok so that we can broadcast this right across the channels. And so we are in here with another episode of the podcast, guys. Are we ready to go? Are we ready to rock and roll? Okay, I think we're good. Let's do this, guys. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. And I want to bring you some simple value today. We're going to be talking about how to lose fat in 5 steps nutritionally. Now, if you've been living under a rock, you probably would know that you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. And so what I'm going to do here is, rather than give you some lesson on how to track your nutrition, what I want to do is just give you the basics of 5 dietary changes that you can make without tracking to achieve fat loss. Does that sound like a deal? So if you're ready to get involved, please let me know. So I think that the big thing that we want to start with here is that everyone kind of knows what to do, but they just can't get themselves to do it, right? You probably know that you need to eat a little bit healthier, be a little bit more controlling of your portions, but there is something in this whole thing that makes it difficult in the application, right? I think that the main reason that no one really deals with is that most of the time we're eating our emotions. Would you agree? We're not eating because we're extremely hungry. We're not eating because, oh my God, we desperately need the calories, otherwise we're going to die. We're eating because some part of us is emotional or stressed. And so what I want to talk about here is just a couple of strategies that you could perhaps start implementing today to help get you started in fat loss. So let's go from the top. Number 1 is that you got to increase your intake of protein. Okay, you need to increase your intake of protein. So why would I say that? If you look at the dietary guidelines or recommendations for any country, it is deliriously low. And the reason is that the guidelines are based on you surviving, not thriving. These guidelines might tell you that you need to have 10 to 20% of your calories come from protein. The problem with this is that these guidelines have been in place for 4 or 5 decades. They're not working. The majority of the world population is overweight. So if something is being sold over and over and over again as healthy advice, but it's not actually working, you have to question why this is. And I'm going to tell you, when we take our clients and we look at what they did before they join us, and they say all the time, I'm feeling hungry all the time and I'm putting on weight. Then all of a sudden we get them on a meal plan and they feel like they're full all the time. One of the most reported things that I hear is, I can't eat all this food on the meal plan, Jace. But they're losing weight. So what does that tell you? If you've gone from being hungry all the time and putting on weight to being full constantly and not being able to finish off your meals, what is going on then? Something about what you're eating is causing you to feel full. Would you agree? And so that is the change that we make. We increase the amount of protein in your diet. I want you to think about 2 example foods. Let's say we take a big ass bowl of rice, which is mostly carbohydrate, or we take a big ass T-bone steak. And I'm not saying the carbohydrates are bad, so don't twist my words. But let's say we stuff both of them in your stomach. Which one do you think is going to get to the other side quicker? And yes, you guessed it, it's the rice, because it's easier to break down. That big old T-bone steak, if you've cooked it in a nice fashion with not too much added oil, it's not only going to have a moderate amount of calories, but it's going to sit in your gut and slow down your digestion. And what this means is you're going to feel fuller for longer, making it less likely that you're going to go out and snack more in between that and the next meal. A great example of this is, have you guys ever been to a kind of Chinese restaurant, had a big ass bunch of fried rice, you've left there feeling absolutely bloated, and then all of a sudden, an hour and a half after you get home, you're feeling hungry again? It's because you're filling up on carbohydrate food. Now, when you start to move to a more protein-rich diet, not only do you give yourself the building blocks to actually build some muscle if you're doing some resistance training, but number 2, it's gonna help fill you up. And the name of safe, sustainable weight loss is being full. It's not being hungry. Everyone equates that in order to lose fat, you've got to be hungry all the time. You are going to go through periods of hunger, no doubt, because you're running out of petrol. But you shouldn't be hungry all the time. And so for this reason, if you fill up on more protein, you're going to be fuller for longer. Let's get into little strategy 2. That is to stop eating from packets. I want you to think about sitting down to a meal of a steak or chicken or fish. Not only is it really, really filling, but it doesn't go down really quickly, does it? It's almost hard work. If you compare this to eating something like spaghetti or lasagna, foods that are more processed, they are far easier to chew and digest. So when you are constantly eating from packeted foods, think of it as almost like pre-digested. Whereas if you're going to sit down and eat a big meal of, say, high fibrous vegetables and a bunch of protein over here, it's actually really a lot of chewing. You almost feel like a horse grazing, right? You can't just jam that down really, really quickly. So what this does is means that overall you're consuming less calories. If you want a simple strategy, if you're responsible for the grocery shopping in your house, I want to give you the simplest strategy that you can have. And that is, when you go into the grocery store, okay, think of it almost like a ring. There's a ring of departments in the grocery store, and then you've got your aisles. The moment you start to get lost in the aisles, that's when you start to buy all the packet shit. Would you agree? If you can tend to stick to the perimeters on your shop, this is where the majority of the whole foods are going to be. We all kind of duck into the aisle to get some coffee or, I don't know, pick up a pack of protein bars or whatever it is you do. And then while you're in the aisle, you're kind of like, oh, you know what, I'll pick out some Coke while I'm here, or I might just like go down and get some crisps while I'm here. And when you start to get lost in the aisles, it's almost like you're falling into the pinball machine. So the simplest thing that you can do is, if you're just ducking in to get dinner for tonight, don't go into the aisles. Just stick on the perimeter. And that's where you're going to find the majority of your non-packeted, lower calorie, high protein foods. So far we've got stop eating from so many packets. Number 2, get your protein intake up. Number 3, and this has got to be literally the easiest thing to implement. And that is, you got to stop drinking your calories. Now, there's two things I want to pick on here. Number one is booze, alcohol. Number two is sodas. I'll start with the sodas. For all of you guys that keep saying things like aspartame or artificial sweeteners cause cancer, I just want you to understand that the risks of you getting ill from aspartame are so low, and you would have to consume so much of it compared to you being 20, 30, 40 kilos overweight and your risk of developing diabetes. It's almost not worth thinking about. If you can have a can of Diet Coke and it's got a can of Coke and it's got a bunch of calories in it, and you can have something that tastes pretty much exactly the same, except it's Coke Zero and it has 0 calories, it makes no sense at all that you would go and drink the full sugar one. It actually makes no sense at all. Now, one of my clients, and he's an OG client. He's a legend of a bloke. He just sent me his update from last month, from June. In June alone, now he's a fairly big boy, but for June alone, he lost over 8 kilograms, which is 20 pounds. I'm going to say that again. He lost 20 pounds from doing one thing and pretty much one thing only. What was it? He had a dry month off the alcohol. He didn't all of a sudden do a bunch of extra exercise. He didn't go and lift a ton of weights. He didn't starve himself. He removed the alcohol. And when it comes to alcohol, the calories are going to come in two places. The ethanol, the pure alcohol itself. So when it says this is 10% or 20% or 30% alcohol, they're talking about the pure alcohol. And then the extra things that come in the alcohol, which is the carbohydrates, the sugar. So if you're having, there's a couple of levels here. If you're having let's say you love a bourbon and Coke. Okay. You just like, Jace, hands off my alcohol. I'm still going to drink alcohol. Okay, cool. Have a bourbon and Diet Coke. And if you're still so infatuated with the aspartame and the artificial sweeteners, okay, cool. Have a bourbon and soda. You will half your calories just by moving to a post-mix, a soft drink that doesn't contain any calories. So this effectively means that you can half your calories, or essentially double the amount you drink for the same amount of calories. I'm all about the practical strategies here. Like, I'm not giving up alcohol, personally. If you feel like it's a real problem in your life, maybe you need to consider giving it up. But if you are not giving it up, well, then what you need to do is think to yourself, well, how do I make it less damaging? And the simplest way is to go for either a low-calorie version or get rid of the soft drink that you're putting with it that contains the calories, and instead mix it with something like soda. Now, for those of you that love a gin and tonic, I just want to give you the heads up. Tonic is extremely high in calories. It doesn't taste sugary, but I want you to read the label next time you get a tonic water and find out for yourself. So we've got 3 strategies so far. Increase your protein intake, stop eating from packets, and don't drink your calories. What are we up to? 4. I want you to not be so restrictive. I want you to have this mindset instead. Rather than deleting everything from my diet, which is what most people do when they think that they need to lose weight, they all of a sudden say, well, I'm not eating that, I can't eat that, can't eat that, can't eat that, can't eat that. Then they're hungry. And what do you do when you get really, really hungry? You go and feed, right? That's what you do. So instead of trying to delete all these calories from your diet by removing the entire food, what I want you to do instead is thinking about substitution. So rather than subtraction, deletion, I want you to think about substitution. And here's what I mean. Hands up if you love ice cream. I absolutely love ice cream. In fact, I'm doing 75 hard right now, and I'm eating ice cream, half a tub of it, every single night. And I'm on a calorie controlled plan. How am I doing that? I'm eating Halo Top ice cream. An entire tub contains about 360 calories. If you were to have that in Ben & Jerry's, the calories are about 4 times the amount. So if you got the choice between two options that both of them taste good, both of them come in relatively the same flavors, but you can have one that's 4 times the calories of the other, why would you choose the one that contains 4 times the calories? It doesn't make any sense. If you're serious about fat loss, these strategies are so easy to implement today, and they will not impact your quality of life. What are some other examples? Okay, well, let's say that you're a Starbucks latte guy or girl. We don't do that in Australia, but let's say you're in the US or Canada and you do that every day. Guess what? Trade in your big ass fucking Frappuccino scenario with either a black coffee, or you could go with something like skim milk or unsweetened almond milk. You're still having the coffee, but you're swapping it out for something a little bit low calorie. Does this make sense? So it's about swapping rather than it is deleting. Okay, that's number 4. Number 5, and this is more a mental strategy than it is a physical strategy. So I've given you really 3 physical strategies. That is to eat your protein. I didn't mean to do that. Eat your protein first. Number 2, don't drink your calories. Number 3, stop eating from packets. Number 4 is a mental strategy, which is don't go too restrictive and then end up binging. And number 5 is to ask yourself, whenever you get that drive to eat, you want to ask yourself, am I hungry or am I just bored? Because I get it. Here's one of the things we can all acknowledge, right? That is that food gives us a definite source of pleasure, of love, some of us more than others. And so what tends to happen is when we're feeling a bit anxious, when we're feeling a little bit stressed, when we're feeling a bit emotional, what do? We search for something that takes us away from that. And so we know that probably more than anything else in the world, if we can go to food, we will get a definite result. We will feel better as a consequence. But sometimes we just need to be with the boredom. Sometimes we just need to be with the emotion or be with the stress and work our way through it. Rather than trying to just eat our emotions or eat our stress, if we just ask ourselves the question, am I bored or am I actually hungry? If you're hungry, it might be because you haven't implemented the strategies that I've told you up to this point in time. Maybe you're not eating enough protein. Maybe you're not eating from whole foods and you're constantly hungry because your diet is so high in processed carbohydrates. You might be genuinely hungry. But more often than not, you're one of 2 things. Emotional, including stress and boredom, or number 2, you're actually thirsty. So your body is detecting that you're hungry, but actually you're thirsty. And so chugging a bunch of water, 0-calorie soft drinks, something like that. My favorite thing to do at the moment as part of 75 Hard, you've got to drink 4 liters of water a day or a gallon of water a day, is just to get plain water and stick an electrolyte tablet in it that doesn't have any calories. It makes it taste amazing. And getting down the 4 liters is relatively easy. So this is, fat loss for a lot of people is really, really difficult because they just don't know where to start. I've spoken to a number of people this week that have been like, I just got no idea where to start here. Well, I've given you the start point. Here, we need to increase the amount of protein we're eating. We need to stop eating from packets so much. We need to get up our intake of non-calorie fluids. We need to not go so restrictive and maybe instead of just deleting everything and removing it all, instead maybe just consider ways that you can swap out to healthier options. And Halo Top is a great example. And then finally, ask yourself the question, am I bored or am I genuinely hungry? And if you're genuinely hungry, more often than not, you might need to eat. But 90% of cases, you're going to find that you're actually just bored. So I hope this has been helpful, guys. I'm going to love you and leave you there. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, coming to you for the first day after the Canadian bank holiday. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, team. So